So here is my first entry into conversations in Naples, right? I had a coworker. He walks into the kitchen and he sees me cooking rice, right? I'm a chef, you know this. So my coworker walks into the kitchen, sees me with a box of rice. He looks at it and he says, "Oh, Uncle." He says, "Oh, wait, you can't say that anymore." And I said, "Excuse me?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look at the box." And it was at that moment that I realized that what I thought was Uncle Ben's rice was just called Ben's now. I was like, oh wow, they took the uncle out of Ben's. I've been saying Uncle Ben's my whole life, right? So even when I see the product, I just say Uncle Ben's. However, they removed Big Ben from the whole cover of the box, as well as taking his name, taking the word uncle off of it. So now it's just Ben's rice. And he said, yeah, man, that was during that whole woke movement. They took the uncle out of it. He said they did the same thing with Aunt Jemima too. To which I'm like, so what do they just name it, like Aunt now or what? Jemima? He said, no, it's called the Pearl Milling Company now. I said, wow. That's interesting, because as a descendant of people who were slaves in America, here's what I can tell you, is that it's not the foundational blacks who were ashamed of Uncle Ben or Aunt Jemima. Truth of the matter is, as a black culinarian, Aunt Jemima, as an American culinarian, right? American culinary scene was created by the service industry, was created by servants who, before they were servants, were just slaves, right? There's so many vestiges of that still in your restaurant history. This is the reason why we tip in America and they don't tip in Europe. Because at one point, servers and cooks were not paid positions, right? Leads into a whole other conversation of the reason why people are trying to fight for good wages in restaurants, and I'm for that. However, these jobs were not necessarily created with you in mind of making a living wage. Anyway, as a black culinarian, I know that I always thought that Uncle Ben was a slave. I always thought that Aunt Jemima was a slave. Removing the fact that they were slaves removes the fact that slavery existed, which removes the fact that we created the culinary scene here. And I don't believe that it is an issue where we feel any less pride, right? Or where we feel, what's the word that I want to go with here? Where we're hurt by the fact that these people were slaves. It's real history, right? Just pay homage to them in real ways, right? Pay their families, right? Allow this to provide jobs for black people, right? The same way that your Uncle Nearest has done with whiskey. Erasing the history of these things does nothing for the people who were afflicted by it. It does more for the people who committed the atrocities, right? To erase it from history, then in some ways vilifies, right, the victors. So I say all of this to say this morning, well, not this morning, but the morning I recorded this original video, which was a few days ago, I look online and I see that my middle school, Monticello Middle School, We call it Monticello in Cleveland. The street is named Monticello. Monticello Middle School is looking to change its name. And the reason why is because the name Monticello is the home of Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner, and, so many other things, right? Once again, does nothing to bring light to the people who were affected by these things. All this does is erase the history and allow the people who committed the atrocities to be validated, right? To not have to own up to the things that they did. Chefs like James Hemings, who was Thomas Jefferson's slave chef, who brought you French fries to America, who brought you creme brulee to America, who brought you the first macaroni and cheese recipe to America. People, among other recipes that this man is credited with, that this amazing chef was credited with. You're talking about people who were cooking in hearths, okay? You're talking about people who were baking cakes for kings and queens and presidents and senators, the like, in a fireplace, okay? I'm talking about some of the best chefs who ever lived. No thermometers were used, right? You're talking about people who were making the finest food ever under the worst of circumstances. To erase those things erases American history, erases culinary history, and it does nothing for the victims. It does nothing for the people who are foundationally black. If anything, rather than erasing these things, there should be some sort of an initiative to use these things to give back to the people who were affected by these things, right? Maybe not necessarily. And I know y'all love to take reparations and y'all love to make it individual, right? Y'all love to take reparations, the conversation of reparations, and even me saying give back to the people. Y'all feel like I'm talking about a check in somebody's pocket, right? What I'm saying is the descendants of Monticello, right? Or even the place itself, right? Let's really bring light to what happened rather than trying to erase it. Same thing with a lot of these other things in history, man. If you guys are going to continue, and you know who I'm talking about when I say you guys, if y'all are going to continue to try to erase history under the guise that it's the woke movement, that's not waking up. That's not opening your eyes to the truth, right? Open your real eyes, become aware, and see what's happening around us. We don't need to erase these things. We need to use them to bring light and to bring worth and wealth to the correct communities and to the correct institutions that can help to end the perpetuation of these things. That's all I gotta say, man. I love each and every one of y'all like you're my own, right? But I just can't watch America die in the way that it has. America's history, our history, be swept under the rug the way that they're trying to these days. I can almost guarantee that the people that are in those meetings that are calling for these things to be eradicated, either they don't feel the same way that I do, or they don't look the same way that I do. I can guarantee that it's probably some butthurt people who are feeling some serious guilt, or who don't want their kids to know about the truth, right? It is what it is. That's how I feel.